The bids are in, the gavel is dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. That's right. This is WineBid's podcast dedicated to all things wine value, wine retail, wine auctions, and just wine. My name is Jeff McGurn. I'm on the WineBid marketing team. With me, as always, is Paul Walker, the savant of Sangiovese. That's right. Paul is our wine expert. He knows everything there is to know about wine, especially Italian varietals. He really knows his stuff.
Varietal is an adjective, not a noun. Don't forget it.
He's also
I'm going to start correcting you immediately.
He's also our grammar expert, apparently. Expert. That's what we're going to call it. Today, of course, is our...
not an expert. But I will correct Jeff on all the mistakes that he makes, including the word Sangiovese has an E on the end. You pronounce the E on the end of Sangiovese.
Maybe you do, because you mispronounce it. So this is our auction recap episode, and we're gonna be going through some of the stuff that sold last week. We're gonna start off with stuff that saw a lot of action. Let's jump right into this 2014 Bruno Colline Chassagne Montrachet Les Chenavot. I'm sure I'm butchering that, but
it wasn't too bad. I've heard words.
9 bids, so over 55 to 95. So,
yeah, it's interesting. There were some other 14 Bruno Colline wines in not long ago, and they're already going for more with just a couple of months, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I want to say. And, it's interesting because everyone's talking about prices or softening, this and that, but for rare wines from obviously great white Burgundy vintages, almost 10 years now, that's, it's good. Things are going to continue, I think, to creep up, especially I think at 55 was pretty low to start with. So,
well, I also wonder if there's a part of this where you see if there's a softening at the very top end of the market, that pushes some folks to buy stuff that's a little bit more affordable. And so you might see some growth in certain areas of the middle and lower end of the market.
I mean, that's pushing, Pernod Cru, let's just call it second tier producer, Burgundy into, that's just about $100. I mean, after commission and tax and shipping, it's going to be $120 or something. And so that's starting to get into a more serious price range. However, you're right. I think, when you're talking about the really expensive stuff, softening a bit, it does boost some of these other examples that look like relative deals when they start at $55 a bottle. So,
relative to Domaine Loire,
God knows. All the other big shot white producers. I mean, these great wines for sure. It's not that I'm not saying second tier, meaning it's the quality level is low by any means, but they're not at the same range as some of the ridiculous level white producers or any white, red, whatever.
Let's jump over to Bordeaux.
Yes, like our everlasting topic of expensive Sauvignon Blanc, and this one is pretty interesting because this also, it is 10 years old, and Smith Lafitte. I mean, it's like one of those wines where the younger vintages. I mean, I don't know. I'm always curious about this. Seems to me like something that's 10 years. I mean, okay, it's probably fully mature. It's probably drinking great, but I don't get why. And there are 2 bottles in this lot too. It wasn't just a single bottle. But both bottles got bid up almost to $90 a piece. So, that's pretty wild. And obviously this is a record for this wine. I think maybe back a while ago, it did sell for more than this, which to me is always strange. But, more recent vintages are, they're not cheap. So I guess they're all kind of over 100. Wow. The 15th, 175. So I guess compared to other recent vintages within the last 10 years, this is a relative deal. But that did seem like a lot to me.
I don't know. I always look at it like, I don't know. I don't hear a lot of people saying like, I got to get my hands on some Smith Lafitte Blanc, right? Like, and
they've always made a great white wine.
There's a lot of great white wines made in Bordeaux, right?
Right, but their white has stood out especially. And so I think it's a notable wine. It's not on the same quality as like La Mission Blanc or even L'Arrivée au Prion Blanc, but it's quite good in this. And there's a few other producers, I think, that are doing wines of this, sort of, well, especially two from Pessac. From Pessac, the white wines from there I think are more well respected than some of the white wines produced in Pauillac or other parts of the Médoc. These are more serious, but anyway, I was just surprised to see that much activity, 65 to almost $90 a piece.
97 Cayuse Columbia Valley Syrah got 8.
Yeah, that's interesting, right?
8 bids, taking from 40 to 114. Whoa.
This is wild because, you can buy newer vintage Cayuse wines all the time for less than $100 by far. So that was pretty crazy. I think that's just rarity factor. It's got to be rarity factor.
I think the last time we sold it was in 2008 for $35.
Yeah.
So just not a bottle you see very often. Okay, we've got this 2020 Costa Brown Gevrey Chambertin, which got 8 bids, taking it from 65 to 84.
Yeah, that's really interesting because there are, I think, a couple of other Burgundies from Costa Brown from the 2020 vintage. I don't know if they made any of these before this. I'm, as Jeff likes to say, I'm an expert, but I'm not. So I know they made a Pommard, I think, from 2020. But I don't know where else. Anyway, very interesting to see Burgundy from a California producer. You don't see that every day. I don't know if they transported the juice. Did they bottle it in Europe? Did they bottle it here at the winery? What the story is. But
they added 5 bottlings from France's Burgundy region to their portfolio.
What does that mean? Was the fruit brought over in a boat, in a plane? Did they bottle it there? What happened? I'm curious.
You're looking for some specifics on
I'm just curious, how it worked, because I know that, who was it? I think it was Ancien made a wine years and years ago called Par Avion. They flew the fruit over in an airplane. That's why they called it that. But apparently it was kind of done without, permits or done without sort of import procedures. So I'm curious as to what the deal is with this, but we can figure it out. It's not.
So it's looking like, okay, they got Gevrey Chambertin, Beaune, Pommard, Volnay, Mersault.
Okay, so they made a whole range.
It sounds like the way they're saying it. It sounds like they made it in Burgundy because they keep making. They keep saying like making wines in Burgundy.
Yeah, I wish I saw the back label because I'm sure there's an import label on it, unless they were responsible for that, and then they're just selling it out at the winery or on the mailing list or something. But anyway, that's cool. I wonder. I think the Pommard was in last week too. I was going to look that up. Anyway, cool to see.
Definitely.
I'm surprised that they've got multiple bids too.
Definitely. Well, this is super interesting, and I'd be super curious to give it a try. We had this Miani Chardonnay.
Yeah, so the Miani wines are cool. I was going to say we had really interesting examples of white wines that got bid up, including the Miani Chardonnay, the Stony Hill, and then the Smith Lafitte Blanc, because the Miani stuff is always very expensive. The Friulano, I don't know, did you see how that got bid up?
Yeah.
A whole bunch.
Doubled the
double the reserve.
Doubled on the reserve, which is
this is great stuff. I don't know if you've had these wines before. They're very, very good. I think they're maybe overpriced, but everybody says everything's overpriced. But I don't know. They're very, very good wines. And the white wines I've tried more than the reds. The reds I'm not familiar with them, but anyway, excellent stuff. And every time they hit, they seem to get some pretty serious action. So,
go out, buy a few thousand cases, and then you can ride that investment train. And then every time,
that's right. Jeff's wine investment expertise.
That's right. That's right. You just buy like 10,000 cases of Miani Chardonnay, right? The Stony.
Isn't that what Gallo just did? They just bought a whole bunch of Chardonnay. They just bought Rombauer.
Yeah, I know. Or you could buy Rombauer. 2013 Stony Hill, which you mentioned, that one we had 5 bottles.
Yeah, it's like $35 reserve is like criminally low. I'm surprised. I mean, this wine is like eternally underrepresented at auction, I think, because it's so good. It's just a phenomenal producer and been making wines, traditional methods forever. And they aged for a long time. I've recalled like vintages from the 90s that I had like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago that were still just amazing. So not surprised here, although there were 5 of them, which is kind of interesting. And all of them got bid up and about $55. But even so, like $55 for that at auction, it's high quality wine. It's very, very good.
It's so the last time we sold it was in June of 2022, and it went for $35.
No, because we just sold like I think other vintages as well, like the 11. And I mean, I guess it's been a little while. It's been a year for most of them, but you're right. They're mostly between $35 and $45. So that is kind of interesting to see it get bid up.
Starting to get some traction there. 2016 Castello Romy Torrio, Brunello de Montalcino, 7 bids, took 3 of them from $40 to $60, and all 3 sold. So a little bit of action there in Italy. And then I thought this was interesting. This 03 Domaine Ramonet Puigny Montrachet Champcanet went 7 bids, so from 95 to 230.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's a tricky vintage for white wines, but hey, maybe somebody knows that this wine is great. I mean, Ramonet is a phenomenal producer, but that's a big jump.
That is a big, solid jump. Now, if you had bought 100,000 cases,
oh gosh,
you would have doubled your money. More than double your money.
I'm trying to see if there's production numbers on the bottles.
It's be like it's probably 500 cases produced a year.
If that, there's probably just a couple barrels for gosh sake. But yeah, that's a serious. I mean, that's a serious jump from 95 to 230. That's no joke.
No, that is.
I don't know. I would pick another vintage. I'm just going to say that.
Too investing. Let's switch over to some of the heavy hitters. Okay. So, I mean, we had last week just we had 2 3-bottle lots of Screaming Eagle sell.
Yeah, there's a lot of Screaming Eagle in last week. Actually, a lot of it moved.
Sure. A lot of Screaming Eagle in last week. A bunch in this week. We had the 15 cab. The 3-bottle lot sold for $88.35, and the 2019 cab 3-bottle lot sold for $82.95. We had this 12-bottle lot of 98 Mouton OWC that sold for $63.60. I thought that was a really interesting buy for someone. We had this 05 DRC Latache that sold for $54.15, and a 04 Loire Corton Charlemagne, which sold for $5,300, and 2 bids to the 95 3-bottle original wooden case of Harlan Estate. Took it from $34.50 to Hammer at $36.50. And of course, as you mentioned, more 15 single bottle Spriegel for $2,800, 2020 for $4,80. And then the 09 for $26.90. And then we got an 89.
I think the 2020, that was 2 bottles. I think it was $22.40 each for the 2020.
Oh, sorry. No, you're right. Sorry, yeah. $22.40 each.
Just a lot for a tricky.
That'd be a lot for a single vintage. 1989 Aubryon, 2 bids took it from $16.80 to
over
$21.80.
Man,
whoa,
$21.80. That's no joke. That wine keeps just creeping up. It's just wild. It makes the 90 now look really cheap.
Yeah,
the 90 is still under $1,000. I mean, holy moly, $21.80.
You're looking at, and then like it's interesting to see, then like right below it you have a 14 DRC Echezot, right, for $21.65. So it does seem like there's more and more value in Bordeaux, I guess, comparatively. maybe. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if you're looking at young vintages now, it's just crazy how inexpensive those still seem to me, to be 18s, 19s. They still seem very inexpensive compared.
I agree with you. Like, I think they're still just a tremendous deal, and I'm always floored that they haven't
like week after week, they keep coming through and they're not getting the bid up, and I'm just really surprised. I mean, yeah, it might take a few years, but they'll go up for sure, especially just the high quality wines, and if you get a chance to taste them, that's all the better. So what you like, but still, I mean, there's a lot of great deals there.
What else you got?
There's a couple other like auction high hammers that we featured. I always like to bring those up. This Palacios La Faraona was one that's crazy too. The 2020 hammered at 615. That wine's never cheap. Speaking of Spain, these Comando Rumbo wines, I'm very curious about these. I've never tasted them. They're very expensive. 19 Comando Rumbo Al Norte Garnacha for 615 as well. Let's see. There's a mag of 89 Decam hammered at 805, which is pretty serious. 84 Cama Special Selection hammered at 425. That wine keeps going up too. I think some of those mid 80s Camus wines are just amazing. 84 is very, very good. So it's interesting to see that go up. 16 Bryant hammered at 595. We had a bunch of Harlan in last week too. This 09 Louis Carillon Bienvenue Batard at 490 was quite a bit. 04 Dom Perignon P2 at 400. 83 Grange, Penfolds Grange at 430. 18 Promontory hammered for over 1,035. So that stuff keeps going up too, which is interesting. It's kind of following in the footsteps of Harlan there, but definitely doing better than Bond did after at least in terms of how long after that label was created. I think it's probably about 10 years of vintages now, but anyway, interesting to see the 18 go for over 1,000. So a lot of crazy stuff.
And with that wraps up our auction recap. This has been Paul Walker and Jeff McGurn wishing you happy bidding and cheers.
Cheers.